on this computer. All right. Well, maybe we give them another moment. Maybe someone comes in and we can see it.
Sure.
So I did try to prepare everything. Oh, yeah. I already see Jane is coming in. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Jane.
So we're actually still waiting for everyone to come in. I know more people wanted to join, so let's see if they do. Well, let's just start. I think we just start, Johanna.
Sure, let's go for it.
So I'm so happy to have you here tonight, and I'm so happy to introduce you tonight. And for everyone who is watching us, I introduce to you the wonderful Johanna Sargeant. She is an IBCLC breastfeeding consultant, and for me, she's actually the expert about breastfeeding and the one go-to person if I have any situation that I cannot handle. I always ask Johanna, because I know that she does her work with all her heart. She's so passionate about it, and she provides evidence-based information for mamas, and as I said, always with her whole heart. So I'm really happy to have you here tonight, Johanna.
Thank you. That's so nice.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We know each other since a while. Johanna has 2 wonderful boys, and we know each other since the first one is born.
That's right.
Which is
already,
already over 8 years.
Yeah, crazy.
Wonderful. So tonight we would like to talk to you guys about breastfeeding, and for the ones of you who are still pregnant, we'd like to talk about breastfeeding preparation in terms of what you can do before the birth to be as ready as you can for something that you have never done in your life before, if it's your first one, or also be prepared as best as you can if you had maybe a tough experience with your last one, and now this time around you can take the chance and change things around. And this is a big topic for the 2 of us. We really want to make sure that moms get the support they need for a positive breastfeeding experience, however that might look like. It can look so different for everyone, but we want to make sure it is positive.
Right.
And so, Johanna, I would like to ask you to start with, in terms of breastfeeding preparations, what is it that you really recommend to women, or what is it that you think like this is something so important they should know before the baby arrives?
Sure. So I think that the most important thing to understand about breastfeeding is actually the way that it works, which sounds a little bit condescending, I realize, but there's the general knowledge is that you put your baby to your breast, they get on, and everything sorts itself out. So I'd say for me, the most important thing that I would like people to know is that it is a skill that you learn, and it is a skill that your baby learns. And a lot of the time it's something that you have never done before, and it is something that your baby clearly has never done before. So for many, many women, from the very first moment, it is not always perfect. It is something that gets worked at, and it can come. You require support, you can talk to people, and you can get there. But I think just going into it with the expectation that it needs a little bit of practice to begin with.
Yeah, that's also what I experience, or that's also what the 2 of us see afterwards, like after the birth, that a lot of, let's say, issues that come up in the postpartum time have to do with the fact that the expectation of what was coming was like not really congruent with how it really is. So yeah, I support whatever you have said before. And also the other thing that I usually recommend to women is to really I encourage most women to do the colostrum banking. So maybe you would like to say something about the colostrum banking.
Sure. So that's the concept of that. Firstly, I've got one of my small syringes here that you can see. This is just 1 ml syringe. So this gives you an idea of how much you would be collecting to begin with. It's not a bottle full of stuff. So the concept there is that usually from 24 weeks-ish, you're starting to make colostrum, which is the first milk that your baby will have. You might not be aware that you're making it. You might see a little bit of like crusty orange stuff on your nipples when you're pregnant. That's what that is. So one thing that we can recommend is that usually I say from 37 weeks onwards is that you can start to practice doing what we call hand expression, which is to squeeze your breast in a particular way that you can start to get tiny little drops of this colostrum that is coming out of your nipples. And you can just collect it drop by drop by drop in here. And like I said, it's not a bottle full. It is a very small amount, and you very slowly start to bank what it is that you get. And you can store those in the freezer to be able to use later on if you find yourself in a situation where you would like to have a little bit of bonus milk at some point.
Exactly. And also as a midwife, the second reason which supports the colostrum banking is that by actually stimulating the breast, you also stimulate the uterus activity a little bit. And this is why you recommend to starting from 37 weeks. And me as a midwife, I usually, with this 37, 38, whatever weeks, that's always for me not exact enough, because as a midwife, I count like weeks and days. So I usually say from 30, from 36 plus 0, which is when the 37th week starts, they can start, or you as a mama, you can start to stimulate your breast, because then it's really nice to also stimulate the uterus activity so that you don't go, possibly don't go too far over the due date, but your uterus already starts to be a bit more active and starts to work a little and get ready for the birth. Yeah.
And actually, one thing as well that I love about colostrum harvesting, we call it, is that it also gets you familiar with your breasts. So you probably have not been in a position where you have touched your breast very much, where you have really gotten to know your nipples and how they look and how they work. And this is a situation where you start to just become more comfortable with how your body works and with squeezing your breast, which is a handy skill to have. So,
yes, definitely. Also for, after the birth, there is the mounting of the milk eventually. And if you already know how to kind of handle your breast and how to make sure that the milk comes forward towards the nipple, that helps you so much when your breast might become harder and the mounting of the milk is coming up and can be a bit uncomfortable. But if you know how to kind of massage or stimulate, you can help yourself so much already there. Yeah. And you will actually, in the Facebook group, you can scroll further down in the feed, and you'll find the document, the worksheet that I did about colostrum harvesting. Like Johanna said, I called it banking, whatever. You know now what we mean. And for you Swiss ladies in the group, you have it on the internet platform, the same document, and it's called, or you find it under Stillvorbereitung. Exactly. Yeah, and the other topic that we would like to talk to you about tonight is what to watch out for in the first couple of days after the birth. And this is such an important topic to us because we are the ones supporting women after the birth, and we keep on seeing very similar situations quite often, which both of us find could have been prevented so easily if women knew more about this very vulnerable, very special kind of space after the birth. Maybe you have some hints about this, Johanna, for everyone watching us.
Sure. So I think you're right. I mean, we see women, so you give birth, you're in the hospital for a couple of days and you go home, and it is only after usually week 2 that I will come and see you. And that's where we start to see potentially some follow-on effects of what has been happening before then. And you're right, it is frustrating that it is the same things over and over and over. So yeah, these things that we see over and over and over are probably the biggest thing is this idea of the fact that if you are in a situation where your baby needs to get some additional milk for whatever reason, the fact that people are giving bottles to very, very tiny babies with additional milk in it. There are a dozen other ways that you can get milk into a baby if they need milk. Clearly, we are prioritizing that babies have enough milk. That is always the priority.
Definitely.
And we just want people to know that you can do it a different way. As soon as you start to put a bottle into the mix, things can very quickly get very tricky. So, for instance, is it okay if I show some things?
That would be great, Johanna. That would be wonderful.
Okay. So, for instance, I have here a syringe. You can, for instance, just use the syringe with some milk and squeeze that into the side of the baby's mouth slowly. That's a way that does not risk your breastfeeding relationship at all while making sure they get enough milk. You can also put one of these tubes on it. If you want some of these, we've got some to help you out if you need it, or you can just write to us and we'll help you out. There are different ways to do this. One thing that I often tell people to do is that you can attach this to your finger with a piece of tape, for instance, and your baby can suck on your finger while you are giving them the milk at the same time. And dads can do this, and I've seen a lot of dads really actually love this process.
Yeah, true.
That is something that also strengthens a lot of their sucking muscles and helps to train them to be able to breastfeed better as well when they're sucking on a finger. The last one really that I want to just quickly mention is something like this, which is the fanciest version of that. Same general concept where you've got a small tube and you put your milk in the bottle, and here you can actually have your baby feeding at your breast with the tube in their mouth at the same time. So that is the gold standard of making sure babies are practicing breastfeeding while getting any extra milk that they need at the same time. This is just 3 ways. There's a whole bunch of other ways to make sure that you protect your lactation, protect your breastfeeding relationship, and make sure that your baby is fed, which is what we want.
Yes, yeah. And at the same time, exactly the knowledge of this, and then being at the hospital where they might suggest very easily to give a bottle is so difficult to handle in the first couple of days, because you are, as I said before, it's a vulnerable time. You are actually also seeking help and support from the health professionals. And we really have to say that, unfortunately, the fact is that in many hospitals, in many clinics, not just here around the Zurich area, but in general, the breastfeeding skills are just not supported in a way that everyone knows by science, by evidence-based facts, that it should not be done with a bottle. I mean, we have so much evidence of it, and still this comes recommended, and I also understand why, because at the hospital often they just do not have the time to support you as best as their knowledge is. And that's the point where I really highly recommend to, when it's starting to get difficult with the breastfeeding, don't stay in the hospital longer, but go home and have your midwife coming in, or check with Johanna. She, she always does, she does home visits in the Zurich area, like in the Silver Coast area, but also she does Skype consults, and you have a midwife coming after the birth and make sure that she really gives you the support that you need. And if not, you search a specialist like Johanna and get the help that you really need, because we really know, and we observe it over and over again, if these first couple of days are tough and it's difficult to figure out, and you're getting used to this bottle and the knowledge of how many milliliters your baby is drinking and how much it's weighing before and after and whatever, this is like the beginning of the end, because it makes you so you get a feeling of not being good enough, and this goes so deep that really this breastfeeding topic usually is a very deep personal topic, and we just want to make sure that you are supported in there. So don't stay at the hospital too long. Don't listen to every advice they give you, because it will be many per day, but rather when you see that things are getting a bit more difficult, go home and have that one-on-one with a midwife or with a breastfeeding consultant like Johanna. And if you have a breastfeeding specialist, always make sure that it's an IBCLC, that they really have like this special education and they work evidence-based and give you the best support you can get. Yeah.
It's important just to mention as well that a lot of people will say pretty flippantly that they are a breastfeeding specialist, or sometimes a lactation counselor, maybe. Anybody can say that. If they have seen a couple of people breastfeed, you can say that. That means you have no education in it. So make sure you have got that IBCLC.
Yeah, definitely. And the second thing, I mean, we had how to get the milk into your baby if it's for any reason difficult to drink directly on the breast, or if for any reason you have the feeling that it has not been enough on the breast. But there are other things to watch out for. For example, what I meet a lot, and maybe you can tell me if you see that as well, Johanna, it's women come home with this idea of when her baby or when their baby has to drink, in terms of, it's not 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever yet. So it's not time to eat, or the baby has been drinking just 5 minutes, or it has already been drinking an hour. And, all these numbers, they might be great for a lot of other topics in life. But I can tell you something, and it's really, for me, it's the truth. They do not have to do one thing with breastfeeding. Breastfeeding doesn't work with numbers, not at all.
Right.
It's always about meeting the needs of your baby and kind of find this relationship with your baby where you synchronize your bodies with each other.
Right.
What do you think about this, Johanna?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I prepared something.
Great.
This idea here, I think this really makes it super clear, is that if you imagine that each one of these dots is a feed, I think most people expect that this is what it's going to look like. And often we are told that this is what it's going to look like. This is a full day and a feed every 3 hours in the day, 8 feeds. What it actually often looks like is maybe more like that. And that will be, you still got breaks where they're not feeding so often, and then you've got a situation where suddenly they've had 5 feeds in a super short period of time, and you might be freaking out. Why are they so hungry now? What is wrong? That's just how babies work.
It's true.
It's unpredictable, and as long as you are, I think my concept is, when in doubt, give it a try. And if your baby is hungry, they will feed. So I think honestly it's a handy parenting tool to have. It tends to make babies calm as soon as you breastfeed. So when in doubt, see if they'll take a feed. So.
Exactly. I often say hunger is not always the problem, but breastfeeding is often the solution.
Right, absolutely.
Because it's not just, breastfeeding is not just about food. It's really about being safe and comforted and being soothed and having the scent of the mama and the heartbeat and the breathing. And it's just like, it's like coming home for a little one, because, they were just born and they just need this, this feeling of, if everything gets too much around, I can go back to this safe haven and just, get recharged and get comforted. So, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember you telling me once with my first boy that maybe he has got an itchy toe and he will never be able to tell you that.
Did I say that? Okay.
I always remember that. I tell it to women also.
Yeah.
So maybe breastfeeding will just help them to push through that point of discomfort that we will never be able to always fix the problem for them. Mm-hmm. But it can help to calm them and make them feel safe all the time.
So true. And then talking of this safe haven and being close to the mama, maybe we can also go over to the topic of where is the baby, let's say, where does it rest during the day? Is it in a cot? Is it in its baby bed? Is it, where is the baby? Because what I see is that this is a very important topic for parents to be, like they have a lot of thoughts about where their child will sleep. And usually the idea is that, of course, the baby will sleep in a separate bed, maybe even in a separate room. And when I do home visits, and of course I visit people not after 2 weeks, but right when they come home from hospital the next day, which means like on the second, third, fourth, fifth day, and then going on from there. The first thing that they tell me is like, yes, the baby sleeps in our bed. And it's not working, first of all, not in another room, and second of all, not in another bed. And that brings us to the topic of what is beneficial for the breastfeeding relationship in terms of what biologically, chemically, helps our bodies to synchronize better. Maybe you can talk a moment about that, Johanna.
Sure. I think, my concept of that whole idea is this idea of the fourth trimester that people don't talk about, which is the first 3 months after birth, where your baby actually wishes that they were still inside. And if we just try to kind of replicate that experience for them, that is where they are happiest and where they feel safest and where your feeding relationship can really thrive. So that usually involves carrying your baby, having your baby at your skin as much as possible. And that means also if you're sleeping, like there are these baby bay things as well, where you can attach a bed to the side of your bed for the baby. Things like that. It means that you are reading each other continually all of the time, which is, I think also that it is unbelievable to imagine how connected you are to your baby biologically until after you have one.
Yes.
So the fact that you guys will actually, your temperature will change to make your baby's temperature more appropriate, and your breathing will change to help your baby's breathing, and things like that you are completely unaware of. Yeah. So as much as you can be close to your baby in those first 3 months, the better for your baby's health and for, I think, your postpartum experience and for your feeding as well.
Definitely. And I think this is also something to watch out for in the first couple of days, because as long as you are in the clinic, usually they they facilitate like a baby bed next to your bed, and they also encourage you to put the baby in the bed. In some clinics, and I don't name clinics, but the fancier ones, they even offer you to go for a champagne dinner and leave your baby at the maternity ward, which sounds really fancy now. But once you have a baby, and it's, you know, it is about breastfeeding, and it's like everything evolves around getting in touch with each other and building up a relationship. This actually makes no sense at all. On the contrary, it's an absurd idea that you as a mom with a newborn would go for a champagne dinner and your baby would stay with the nurses, because your baby would be completely lost, and probably most of the dinner you would think like, oh my God, I should be with my baby.
I think that idea is for when you are pregnant and you think that will be a great idea, but when you have a baby, you don't want to do it.
Exactly. It's like, also, maybe we can just mention shortly, you know, the pictures that are in our heads when it comes to what is a good clinic and a nice clinic, and where do you feel comfortable. And you see the pictures of the clinics, and sometimes I just have to laugh because it looks like a spa. But I tell you, giving birth is actually has nothing to do with a spa experience. Definitely not. It's a great experience. It's incredible. It's an experience of natural forces working together, and you are a part of it. Actually, you are the natural force. And that has nothing to do with spa. But that's just a side topic. Right now, what I want to approach is actually, or why I brought it up, is that forget about side bed in the hospital, or forget about giving your baby to the nurses so that you can sleep for whatever, 4, 6, whatever hours. But make sure your little one is really with you. And I mean, not just rooming in, but really on you as much as possible. That means from the very start, from day one, make sure that you have lots of skin-to-skin contact. You know, take your shirt away and take your baby's body, like the onesie, off, so that you really have skin-to-skin. Because biologically, what the skin-to-skin does is it really helps to synchronize you even more, and it really supports the breastfeeding.
And that is really clearly evidence-based. There is so much evidence about the benefits of skin to skin. Absolutely.
Yes, yeah. And so that is, for example, this is something important maybe to know. There is like a very big clinic in Zurich, probably, well, it's the biggest. And it's definitely not fancy at all. But what they do is, even after a C-section, you have skin-to-skin contact with your little one. They even provided a sort of like it's like a bandage around your chest. So if you are not yet strong enough to hold your little one, you have this bandage, and your little one gets just stuck in there, and it can be with you and is safe there. So I think this is a wonderful thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what else? Is there anything else what you think we should say, bring up tonight for what to watch out for, Johanna? We had like the giving the milk in all different ways, but not with a bottle. We had the really rooming in skin to skin. We had like the feeding like pattern. Exactly. What else?
I think the thing that I think people are most afraid of is pain, to be honest. So I just want to give one small tip for that. And it is about the way to position your baby. And I have seen countless women that have got a lot of pain, and then as soon as we put them in this position, it is not there. They have a pain-free feed for the first time. And I think it's super powerful. So, and it fixes a whole host of other potential issues too. So if you can sort this out, I think it's brilliant. We call this just laid back breastfeeding, and it is the laziest kind of breastfeeding that you could do. Brilliant. So I think usually, I'll just go back a little bit. Usually, our idea of breastfeeding is that your baby is here. You probably have a cushion around here, and they are in what we call a cradle hold, like this. Sometimes, you know, you get taught that you can feed like this and you can do any kinds of other things that I very, very rarely get people to feed like that. What I want people to do is to get on the couch, put a cushion behind your back, and just like fully chill out completely. Put something behind your head, take off your shirt, and just put your baby here. That is it. And you will be, I swear to you that your baby will be able to push themselves around. I know you think they won't, but they will. And get onto your nipple without you doing anything.
Yeah.
You just put your arm there to support them. That's it. End of story. You have got a whole other arm. You've got this one there. You can do whatever you need to do. That's it. Your baby is pretty vertical on you. If you've had a C-section, you can still do this, but just a little bit further sideways. But here they're pushed very deep onto your breast. And as soon as they relax into the feed, they actually get deeper. And in this position, when they relax, they get shallower and they don't get much milk and they fall asleep. So that way fixes pain straight away, and it means that you relax so you don't get all of this pain that everybody has after a while.
Yeah.
Fixes a host of problems. So don't forget that that is an option as well.
Yeah. So it also means that you don't need to have the fanciest breastfeeding cushion, because usually it's not something that we use a lot.
And I think like you've got your postpartum belly. That's a brilliant cushion, right? It was there for a reason. You just pop them on there. It's perfect.
Yeah, true. So true. Yeah. So maybe we can just wrap everything together and give you guys who are watching like 3 take-home messages. And those 3 take-home messages, if you add, if I forgot one, Johanna, I would actually say, make sure the baby, well, first of all, prepare for the breastfeeding. Really give it a try with the colostrum harvesting, just to make sure that your body is getting ready. That's number 1. Number 2 is, no matter what, make sure that your baby does not get a bottle. But
Absolutely.
gets additional milk in another way if needed. Yeah.
And I just meant to say about that one too, that a lot of people feel like that is the beginning of the end, and everything is going to go bad. And if you don't give it in a bottle, I see it always as this little bridge that you have to get over. You might have 5 days of that and then you're good. It's not the beginning of the end.
Yeah, true. So true. And the third is, and that's a combination, is like the breastfeeding position that Johanna just showed, you know, chill when you're breastfeeding. Make yourself comfy. Have your baby skin to skin, and then give it a try with the breastfeeding. Yeah. And a 4th, like 3.5, come home timely. Don't stay there until everything gets horrible, but come home as soon as you don't feel comfortable anymore in the hospital.
Yeah.
And you have another one, or you think this
is I have
pretty
like
much
5,000. So
yeah.
I think it just goes with this idea of coming home from the hospital if you find things are getting hard. I think it's really important to know, we already mentioned about an IBCLC, but I see all the time that people presume their pediatrician knows about lactation and knows about breastfeeding. That is the mum's body. The pediatrician has no training in this. The pediatrician's job is to make sure that your baby grows. They don't care how.
Exactly. And also the other way around. So if you think that your gynecologist has a clue about breastfeeding, no. The only thing that the gynecologist says is, yeah, breastfeed or don't, or take antibiotics or don't. But they do not have any training whatsoever in providing support that really brings you further with breastfeeding. So that's not the people to look out for in the postpartum time. what we also prepared for you is we have one book that we would like to recommend. Now, I don't even know if I put it up like this, I don't know if it's like, can you read it?
The Positive Breastfeeding book.
Exactly. So it's not like mirrored. It's
No.
okay. And I will also, the Positive Breastfeeding book is by Amy Brown, and both Johanna and we really like this book for various reasons. But first of all, we find it a really evidence-based book, and it's like really non-judgmental. It's you find out a lot of facts about the breastfeeding, and we both of us agree that we want to provide facts so that you can find your own like way of how to go on with this journey of breastfeeding. And I think this book supports it very well. I will also put the link to the book into the notes underneath the film when it's on Facebook. And also, I will also add the link to Johanna's Facebook group, because she has a wonderful Facebook group that is called Breastfeeding Mamas in Switzerland, where she has some administrators in the meantime, because you have 5, because you have 1,000, how many members?
We got like 2,500.
Oh my God. So you see, that's why I say Johanna is the expert. So she has all those administrators, and they are really, really passionate about breastfeeding. And of course, they consult with Johanna if something comes up that they are not sure with. But that's a great source.
Yeah, the thing that I say about this is that us administrators are on that group all the time. So you will never get wrong information on that. We're always watching. So if someone says something, it is going to be correct.
Okay, wonderful. Very nice. And then also I'll add the link to your website, because it's important to have that in case you would need support after the birth, because as we mentioned before, Johanna does home visits, but she also does Skype consults, and you can actually register for an online meeting or for a direct meeting through the website, which is called Milk and Motherhood. So now I will just pop over to Facebook for a moment to see if there are any questions from you guys. And maybe in the meantime, Johanna, if you want to, if you have something more to tell, another message, and I just check Facebook, okay?
Yeah, great. In my list of things that you could potentially do to prepare while you're pregnant, I also had, besides the colostrum harvesting, I had to be aware of what kind of nipples you have. And you might not even be aware that there are different kind of nipples, but after you have your baby, you'll realize. So for instance, there are nipples that stick out, which are, I've got my baked breast here, it's very small. Haven't seen it this small, but it's one that sticks out. You also have people that have got nipples that are very, very flat, and that even if you try to rub them, or even if you're cold, they stay flat. And you also have women that have got what we call inverted nipples, where it's actually going inside as well. If you just know what kind you have, then that can just help you to get a little bit better prepared as well. In the hospital, if you have got flat or inverted nipples, very often they will give you this here, which is a nipple shield, to put on straight away. And what I would like is for you to not try this for at least 24 hours, because your baby has not sucked on a nipple before. It doesn't know it's meant to be sticking out. They can smell your milk. They smell the glands that are excreting stuff to help them find it. They can still attach onto a nipple that is flat or inverted. So give that a try first. It might still be tricky. These are there for a reason if you're struggling, but give it a solid try first.
Yeah, such a good information. Yeah, it's sometimes when women come home already with a nipple shield, it's like I already am like, oh, okay, so the next like 3-4 weeks we'll try to get rid of that nipple shield again. That's one of my.
I had from the first feed. They gave it to me even before the baby latched on.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
So on Facebook, we have actually 3 ladies watching us, and if Krista, Jane, and Janaina, if you have any questions, now would be the moment to let us know, and we would be really happy to provide some answers as best as we can. So let's know.
Maybe we've answered every possible thing.
We already said, oh my gosh, we could talk for hours, but we know that, we don't want to give you too many information that you don't even want.
Can I just say as well, like, you don't have to do anything to your nipples to prepare them. There are all of these old-fashioned myths about doing horrible, harsh things to your nipples to toughen them up. Don't do it. Don't do it. Leave them alone. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm a midwife already since 28 years, and when I was a young midwife, women were seriously encouraged to brush their nipples so the nipples would become stronger. So, don't do that. Exactly. So listen, I think there is no question right now, but if I see any questions afterwards, if I feel like, I would like you to answer them, Johanna, I would actually maybe forward it to you, and then you could let me know how I could answer, if that's fine for you.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, well, then I thank you, ladies, that you have watched us, and I hope we could help you a little bit further with this breastfeeding topic. And we, of course, are always ready to give you more information. You know how to reach out to us. You get the links to Johanna's sites, and have a wonderful evening. And you, Johanna, thank you so much that we could have this interview.
You haven't heard the chaos with my kids out the door. We make it work.
Oh, it's so wonderful. And I hope we can do that another time for, another topic, or maybe later on when the babies are here, we can actually take it up and give some more information. Yeah?
Brilliant.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and bring your kiddos to bed well. And go from me.
Okay.
Bye, Johanna, and bye, everyone. I'll stop.